Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today we're going deep on something pretty different. We're going to be talking about Sadvipra Leadership
Sadvipra Leadership.
and how it can shape the future.
Yeah.
We've got these writings on a concept called PROUT, and this whole Sadvipra idea. So have you ever wondered what kind of leadership could actually make the world a better place, for everyone?
It's a question that's been on a lot of people's minds.
Well, we're going to find out. So let's
dive in.
Let's dive in. Okay, so these sources are not talking about typical,
Right.
political stuff, are they?
No, not the usual political back and forth. It's a completely different framework. It's all about morality.
Okay.
And this deep commitment to the well-being of all.
So tell me more about this Sadvipra concept. What does it even mean?
So Sadvipra literally translates to true Vipras, which refers to people who embody the highest moral standards, those who are devoted to the well-being of all.
Not just driven by personal gain or power.
Exactly. They're driven by a genuine desire to serve and uplift humanity.
So it's less about me first and more about serving others.
Absolutely. That's a huge shift from what we see so often in leadership today.
It is a big shift, for sure. Now, the source material describes Sadvipras as the nucleus of the social cycle, guiding society towards liberation and progress.
It's a powerful image, isn't it?
Nucleus of the social cycle. That's kind of abstract.
It is.
What does that actually mean?
Okay, so think of it like the captain of a ship. They're not just along for the ride.
Right.
They are actively steering the ship towards a better destination.
Okay.
According to these writings, Sadvipras, they aim to guide society in a way that benefits everyone, making sure that the natural cycles of growth and change lead to good outcomes. Not about stopping the cycles altogether, just making sure they don't lead to exploitation or injustice.
So working within the system to improve it, not just tearing it all down and starting over?
Exactly. Recognizing the good that exists already and using those structures to guide society toward justice and quality.
Okay, so the source material also mentions something called Yama Niyama, which are described as 10 guiding principles for Sadvipras. What are those?
Oh, this is where it gets fascinating. Yama Niyama, it's like the foundation of Sadvipra morality. 10 commandments that guide their thoughts and actions.
Interesting. So tell me more about them.
Okay, so first we have Yama, which focuses on self-restraint.
Okay.
It includes principles like ahimsa, meaning nonviolence in thought, word, and deed. Satya, which is truthfulness, always aimed at helping others.
Okay.
And asteya, non-stealing even in our thoughts and desires.
Wow, non-stealing even in our thoughts. That's a tough one. What are the other Yama principles?
So then we have aparigraha, non-attachment to possessions beyond what we actually need.
Right.
And brahmacharya.
Okay.
Which is maybe the most challenging. It means experiencing the divine presence in all things.
Experiencing the divine in everything. That's a pretty deep concept. What about niyama? The other half of these principles.
Okay, so niyama emphasizes self-discipline. It includes shacha, purity of mind and body achieved through right action and good deeds. Santosha, contentment, acceptance of what we have. And papa, perseverance, dedication, even when things are tough.
Contentment in today's world.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us struggle with that. What are the last two principles of niyama?
There's svadhyaya, which emphasizes self-study and reflection.
Okay.
And finally, ishvara pranatana, surrender to a higher power, recognizing ourselves as instruments of the divine. So it's not just about personal discipline.
Right.
It's about connecting to something larger than ourselves.
So these 10 principles, they're like the moral compass, guiding Sadvipra's actions and shaping their character.
Precisely. Providing a framework for ethical conduct and spiritual growth, shaping how they lead and their approach to creating a better world.
It is a pretty inspiring vision, but let's be honest, can anyone truly live up to all 10 of these principles all the time?
Well, perfection might be an ideal,
Sure.
but even striving towards these principles can make a big difference. Even if we stumble, the effort itself is a step towards becoming better people, contributing to a more just and compassionate society. It's about the journey, not just the destination.
I love that. Progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
But we've talked a lot about theory.
Yeah.
What does Sadvipra leadership actually look like? How would these principles play out in the real world?
Well, this is where the source material gets really interesting. It lays out these key characteristics of Sadvipra leaders, talking about their dedication to fighting injustice and exploitation no matter what.
Okay.
They want to encourage people to find work that gives them meaning, where they can contribute to society. And it's not about top-down control either. Sadvipras are all about collaboration, respecting individual needs and the needs of the whole community.
So it's not just giving orders, but empowering others to find their place.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not about picking one group over another. They champion those who are oppressed or marginalized. It doesn't matter what their background is. It's a universal outlook, rooted in humility and deep respect for every single person.
That's powerful. Leadership that goes beyond all those usual divisions. But are there any, actual real-world examples of this kind of leadership?
Yeah, finding perfect examples is tough.
Sure.
But there are definitely people and organizations out there who are trying to embody these principles, even imperfectly.
Right.
Think about those working for social justice, ethical business, or environmental sustainability.
Yeah.
They're pushing for a better world, even if they don't use the term Sadvipra.
So recognizing those who are trying to make a difference, even if it's not perfect.
Exactly. And remember, every single one of us can choose to embody these principles in our lives. It's about creating that culture of service, compassion, ethical action. It starts with each of us.
Okay, I like that. But before we go too far, I want to circle back to PROUT.
Okay.
How does that fit in with this Sadvipra leadership?
So PROUT is described in the source material as this socio-economic system that aims to create a just and equal world. It's basically putting Sadvipra principles into action.
Okay.
Think of it as the practical way to build a world where those values can thrive.
So if Sadvipra leadership is the why, PROUT is the how.
You got it?
It's like the roadmap.
Yeah, like a roadmap. And PROUT has some pretty specific ideas, like equitable wealth distribution with minimum and maximum income limits.
Wow, okay.
Prioritizing cooperation over competition.
Interesting.
Focusing on well-being, spiritual growth, not just material wealth, and promoting harmony between humanity and nature.
So it's a pretty big vision.
It is a holistic one.
So it's not about just being nice.
No.
It's about systems that actually support fairness and well-being for everyone.
Exactly.
A world where everyone can thrive.
Precisely. PROUT envisions a world where everyone has enough, no one has too much, and we all work together to take care of each other and the planet.
That's a really powerful vision. But can we really achieve this kind of leadership in society? In our world? It all sounds a bit idealistic.
It's definitely a challenge, no doubt about it. But there's this great line in the source material. It says, "There is something which is stronger than all the armies in the world. And that is an idea whose time has come."
So even if it seems like a long shot, the fact that we're even having this conversation means that maybe things are changing.
It's possible. And even if perfect Sadvipra leadership seems far off, about those 10 principles of Yama Niyama can inspire us to be more ethical, compassionate, and service-oriented, those small changes can ripple outward and create a more positive impact on the world.
So it's not about waiting for some perfect leader to come along. It's about each of us stepping up and embodying those principles in our own lives.
Absolutely. The change begins with each of us making a choice to live by those values of justice, compassion, and service. But you're probably wondering how that actually looks in everyday life, right?
Yeah, right. What can the average person do to make a difference?
Well, the source material actually talks about that. It emphasizes personal transformation as the foundation for changing society. It's about developing those Sadvipra qualities within ourselves. Moral integrity, selflessness, a sense of duty, and a genuine desire to help others progress.
So it's like personal development for people who want to change the world. Sign me up. But seriously, how do we do that? How do we go from reading about Yama Niyama to actually living them?
The source material suggests two things: cultivating a correct philosophy of life, and practicing spiritual disciplines. It encourages us to study wisdom from spiritual traditions and do things that cultivate inner peace, clarity, and compassion. It's about aligning our inner world with those values.
So it's not just about thinking good thoughts. It's about putting in the work to change ourselves. So we act with integrity and wisdom.
Exactly. Embodying those principles from the inside out. Which brings us back to the idea of Sadvipra as being true Vipras. Remember, Vipra traditionally means those who are knowledgeable and wise, the ones who teach and guide others. But Sadvipra goes deeper. It's not just intellectual knowledge. It's about really understanding spiritual principles and living by them.
So it's about being wise and compassionate and using that to help others.
Exactly. Sadvipras are those who live wisdom and compassion. They walk the talk.
I'm starting to get it. Personal change and societal change. Working together for a better world.
Yeah.
But the big question, is it actually realistic? I mean, the world's full of conflict, greed, and power struggles.
Yeah.
Can Sadvipras, even a growing number of them, really make a difference?
That's the question, isn't it? And the source material, it knows how challenging things are. It doesn't pretend that exploitation and injustice aren't real.
Right. But it does offer some hope, emphasizing the power of an idea when its time has come. It suggests that when enough people believe in a new vision, a more just way of living, then change has to happen, like reaching a tipping point.
So it's not about a few heroes saving the day. It's about everyone changing the way we think, a movement toward compassion.
It is. It's a collective shift. But how do we actually make that happen? How do we get others to embrace these principles?
Right. How do we inspire people?
Well, the source material talks about education. It says that Sadvipras, those who live by these principles, they need to share these ideas, inspire others to see that a better world is possible, empower them to be the change in their communities. It's about leading by example, showing those principles, and giving people a chance to experience how powerful these ideas can be.
So starting with ourselves, and then spreading that change to our families, communities, and the world. Exactly, creating a ripple effect of positive change. But I bet you're also wondering how to actually do this in the real world.
You know me too well.
Yeah.
We can't all just quit our jobs and become Sadvipra activists.
Right, of course not.
How do we live these principles every day when the world's pushing us in the other direction?
Well, the source material gets that. It talks about finding practical solutions, a balanced approach. It says Sadvipra should work within the systems to make them better, even while they're working for a more just society. Finding ways to promote justice, fairness, and compassion in everything we do. Our relationships, our jobs, our communities.
That reminds me of something you mentioned earlier, the balance between, what was it, existential and utilitarian values. Can you explain that a bit more?
Sure. Existential values are about our inner world, spiritual growth, connecting to something bigger than ourselves. Utilitarian values are about practical things, material security, a well-functioning society.
Right.
The source material says both are important. Both are essential for happiness. We need a world that takes care of both our material and spiritual needs, where people have the resources they need to live well, but also have a chance to connect with themselves, pursue their passions, and contribute to something meaningful.
So it's not about choosing one or the other, it's finding a way to balance them both.
Exactly, finding that sweet spot. And that's where PROUT comes in again. It offers a way to translate those values into real solutions for building a better world. It gets down to the specifics of how a society could work if it really lived by those values.
So how does PROUT say we should handle big problems like inequality, lack of cooperation, and creating a world where everyone feels good, especially in a world that often seems to care more about profit than people?
Well, PROUT starts with the idea of dynamic equilibrium. It knows that the world is always changing, and our systems need to change with it to keep things balanced and harmonious.
So not a rigid plan, but something that can adapt.
Right, more like a living organism, something that can grow and change. And PROUT says that if things don't change, they decay. Progress means constantly adjusting and improving.
That makes sense. So how does PROUT say we deal with inequality?
PROUT proposes what it calls economic democracy, where wealth and resources are shared fairly, making sure everyone has what they need to live, recognizing that people have different needs and abilities. It's about a system where everyone has a chance to contribute their talents and get a fair share in return.
So not everyone gets the same amount, but everyone has enough to live well and reach their full potential.
Exactly. PROUT suggests a minimum income so everyone can afford those basic needs: food, shelter, healthcare, education.
Right, the essentials.
And it also suggests a maximum income to stop a few people from having too much wealth and power.
Wow, a maximum income. That's pretty different from what we're used to.
It is different.
Especially when so many people admire those who have huge fortunes.
It is a shift in thinking. But Prout argues that it's necessary for a truly just society, one where everyone can thrive.
Okay, so PROUT deals with inequality, with economic democracy, and limits on wealth. But what about cooperation? The world is so competitive. Does PROUT have an answer for that?
It does. Prout says cooperation is key at every level of society, from the individual to the global. It recognizes that we're all connected. We can do so much more when we work together instead of fighting each other. It encourages collaboration and support, shifting from me versus you to we're in this together.
That reminds me of the Sadvipra principle of aparigraha.
Yes.
Not being attached to material things. If we're not so focused on getting more for ourselves,
Exactly.
we're more open to sharing and working together.
You got it. The principles of Sadvipra morality and the practical framework of Prout. They work together. They both want to create a world based on cooperation, compassion, and everyone's well-being.
So PROUT is about cooperation and economic justice. What about that sense of well-being we talked about before? How do we make a world where people not only have their needs met, but also feel happy and fulfilled?
Prout recognizes that well-being is about more than just stuff. It's about creating a society that supports people's all-around development, allowing them to live meaningful lives. It's not just a good job and a comfortable home. It's about purpose, connection, and inner peace. Prout encourages us to develop both our material and spiritual sides because both are needed for a fulfilling life.
It sounds great, but I have to ask, is it really possible? Can we actually make a world that lives up to these ideals? It's a beautiful vision.
It is.
But is it realistic?
It's a challenge, for sure. But the source material and Prout philosophy in general, they offer a vision for the future that makes sense. A&D is inspiring. It reminds us that change is possible. We can make a world that's more just, fair, and fulfilling for everyone, and it doesn't depend on some magical solution or a perfect leader appearing. It's about each of us making the change. It starts with us living those Sadvipra principles, making choices that align with those values, and inspiring others to do the same.
That's a great way to put it. It's not about waiting for someone else to fix things. We have to be the change ourselves.
Exactly. And remember, even small actions can make a difference. When we choose to live by those principles of justice, compassion, and service, we become part of a movement toward a better world for everyone.
Well, listeners, we've talked about a lot today, exploring Sadvipra leadership and PROUT philosophy. I hope it's given you some things to think about. If you want to learn more, we'll have some resources in the show notes.
It's been fascinating. And as the source material says, there is something which is stronger than all the armies of the world, and that is an idea whose time has come. Let's be part of that idea. Let's be the change.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep working for that better future for everyone.